For now, I'm going to bring in our panel. We got Fox News contributor, host of the Big Ben podcast, Ben Domenech, Fox News media analyst, Howie Kurtz, and Annie Linskey, White House reporter at the Wall Street Journal. Obviously, we were going to talk about some other things tonight, but this is now it. This is the story of the day, probably of the week and the month. Annie, what's your response? What's your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, it is an extremely important moment. I think it's important to say, of course, an indictment is a really very far cry from a guilty finding.
Yes.
The defense was unable to make a presentation typically in these situations. So there's that. And the other piece, too, is when you think about the timing here, the prosecutors were staring down a 5-year statute of limitations, which was going to run out next week. So there's quite a lot of time pressure on them to either act or stop. And the president has been very clear that he wanted something to be brought before a grand jury. So it's an enormous development, but it is a far cry from any sort of guilty finding, of course.
So to that point, here was what the president posted on Truth Social a couple of days ago. It was then subsequently taken down. It is no longer there. He wrote, in part, Pam, I've reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same old story as last time, all talk, no action, nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam Shifty Schiff, Leticia, that's Leticia James. They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done.
Let's not mince words here. I say this as a former Justice Department reporter. This was completely and totally orchestrated by President Trump. He says he's leaving it to justice, but he very much out in the open. Remember, he fired his own appointee as U.S. attorney in that part of Virginia because he didn't think there was enough evidence to bring this case. Brought in White House aide, his former defense lawyer, whose job was to get this done, and apparently that has worked. I think we've become inured to this, but in previous administrations, any hint of contact within a criminal case would be a scandal on its own. And so President Trump, by the way he pulled the strings, has gotten his way with this initial indictment.
Ben, I just want to clarify. I was under the impression that Truth Social post had been taken down, but apparently I'm being told by our control room that it was not. So I just want to put that out there. What is your response to the big news of the hour?
So I just have to say that, first off, I find James Comey to be someone who was one of the most meticulous manipulators of media coverage that we have had in Washington in a very long time. He was someone who knew how to feed narratives and engage in spin. It would be particularly, I think, humorous for this to be the thing that eventually tripped him up, because he seemed to be very careful about having kind of cutouts all along the way of getting his story out there. But I also think that one of the things that we can look back in this moment is, you actually need to restore faith in the types of individuals who are in these jobs going forward. The American people deserve that. And I don't think that James Comey exited his office or went through this process without losing the faith, not just of Republicans, I should say, but Democrats as well, for the way that he would engage in personal spin, trying to cast himself time and again as being the heroic sort of, stalwart figure and ramrod straight FBI agent and the like along the way. I don't know how this is going to play out. I am not surprised by this indictment. I actually believe that the odds favor a conviction in this moving forward. And even though I think there's hesitation about this case for all the obvious reasons, I would not be surprised if he ends up being convicted on at least one of these counts.
And Annie, he certainly, as Ben said, cut a new figure, right, as an FBI director who was so heavily involved in moving politics and shaken behind the scenes. He's continued to sort of, antagonize conservatives over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I would say that if spinning the narrative is a crime, this entire city is going to find itself indicted and perhaps locked up.
If you spin the narrative using material that is actually not something that you should be sharing, and then you lie about it to Congress, that is a crime.
For sure, and I'm not going to litigate this case here.
Okay, but that's obviously what he's being accused of. He's not being accused of spin.
Right, indeed. But to be fair,
there'd be a lot more people in jail.
Oh no, I mean,
quite a lot.
gosh.
But I will say that Trump, came into office saying that he was frustrated by witch hunts and by the politicization of the Department of Justice. And his critics right now are saying he has done exactly that with this move.
I'm sorry. How is it a witch hunt to go to and say to the American people, we believe that no one is above the law, as we've been told for so many years, and that includes the former director of the FBI? In fact, I think the opposite would be something that would concede the fact that there are certain positions where you can get away with this stuff in
Well,
Washington.
I'm not defending Comey, but as Richard Nixon famously said on the White House tapes, perjury is an awful hard rap to prove.
It is.
And if that happens, that they don't get a conviction, this whole...
Then James Comey can go on a celebratory tour and do all the different seashell Instagram
but it's
posts that he wants.
It's going to be
Hold
embarrassing.
it right there. We have an
Embarrassing for
update
DOJ.
from the FBI director. David Spunt has an update from the FBI director. What can you tell us?
This is pretty extraordinary to hear directly from the Attorney General and FBI Director moments after a former FBI Director has been indicted on federal charges. So FBI Director Kash Patel has a lengthier statement than Attorney General Bondi. Patel says, today your FBI took another step in its promise of full accountability. For far too long, previous corrupt leadership and their enablers weaponized federal law enforcement, damaging once proud institutions and severely eroding public trust. Every day we continue to the fight to earn that trust back, and under my leadership, this FBI will confront the problem head on. Nowhere was this politicization of law enforcement more blatant than during the Russiagate hoax, a disgraceful chapter in history we continue to investigate and expose. Everyone, especially those in positions of power, will be held to account, no matter their perch. No one is above the law. So that is a lengthy statement from FBI Director Kash Patel, speaking of his predecessor, not his direct predecessor, that was Christopher Wray, but two FBI directors before him.
Thank you for that update, David.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.